I'm recording this during the holiday season, so happy holidays to you all. I hope the season brings you lots of peace, health, and happiness. And of course, I hope you continue making great progress with your Russian, whether that's reaching fluency or just learning something new every day. So, I wanted to share a little holiday tradition of mine. Every year, I revisit a handful of shows and movies that really put me in a holiday spirit. One classic that's always on my list is The Nutcracker or Shilkunchik in Russian, whether it's the ballet or a movie adaptation. So I thought, why not make that the focus for today's episode? There are so many movie adaptations out there, but there is one I'm guessing not many of you are familiar with, a Russian animated version that came out in 2022. If you take a look at its reviews, you'll probably notice it didn't get the best reception. The animation, storyline, music, and even some of the characters received their fair share of criticism. So if you're thinking about watching the whole movie, just know that the reviews are a bit mixed. While it has its shortcomings, what really stood out to me was the voice acting and the language. It's not every day you come across that classic, smooth, book-ish Russian. The tone is always respectful, and the voice actors did a fantastic job. Since language is our main focus on this channel, this movie is a great option for anyone looking to practice their Russian. We have the main character, a young girl named Marie. Marie is performing for her neighbors on Christmas Eve. With this older man in the audience watching her. After the performance, we see Marie's mom talking to him, and that's when the story begins to unfold.
Господин Ратер, я прошу вас о небольшой отсрочке.
I'm going to start with the word отсрочка, which means a delay or deferral. You'll hear it a lot when talking about things like payments, deadlines, or other obligations. So when someone asks for отсрочка, they're asking for more time to do something like paying off a debt. If your loan is due and you ask for отсрочка, you're just asking to push the payment to a later date. Now in the show, I can tell from watching that, this is exactly what's going on. There is money owed, and that's why Госпожа Stahlbaum is asking for more time. When you're asking for an extension, you're kind of asking for a favor, so you have to be polite about it. Two things that make this request sound polite is, number one, the formal tone of the phrase «Я прошу вас», and number two, the use of the word «небольшой». While this literally means not big, it's a way to say the delay is small or short or brief. This makes the request sound more considerate, as if you're asking for just a little extra time rather than simply demanding a delay. Now let's talk about the use of вы. In Russian, there are two words for you, ты and вы. The one you use depends on how formal or informal the relationship is between the people talking. Here, Госпожа Stahlbaum addresses Господин Ратер with the formal вы because they don't have the kind of relationship where it would be okay to use the informal ты. They're not friends, they're not family, they're a bank and a client, so вы is the polite, respectful choice. Also, as a side note, господин isn't something you'll hear much in modern Russian conversation. It's an old-fashioned honorific. After the revolution, the use of titles like господин was discouraged as the communists wanted to break away from the aristocratic traditions of the Tsarist regime. Today, the role of titles is replaced by отчество, especially in formal situations. However, господин still survives in certain contexts, like business or diplomatic settings, especially when addressing foreign partners who don't have patronymics. In a fairy tale setting like this one, the use of господин makes sense because it reflects the norms of those times.
Ничего не могу поделать, госпожа Штальбаум. Договор есть договор.
In Russian, when you add a prefix to a verb, it changes the meaning of the action and gives you more details about what's going on. For example, take the verb делать, which just means to do, but when you add the prefix по, like in поделать, it changes things up. Instead of just meaning to do, it can mean to do something for a while. Now, if you look at the phrase «ничего не могу поделать», it's not just «I can't do anything». The поделать part tells you that the speaker has already done everything they could and now there is nothing more they can do. So it's like saying, I've tried everything and now it's out of my hands. So the po prefix adds extra meaning. It tells you that the action has been done or tried and now there is no more to do. Also, more about this phrase. In English, would probably start by saying sorry, but in Russian, ничего не могу поделать is more of a straightforward statement. It's kind of like it is what it is. But if he really wanted to show some regret, he could add увы. Увы, ничего не могу поделать would sound more apologetic. But he says this with zero sympathy. He's eyeing the house like it's about to be his if they can't pay up. For some context, Gospodirator lent money to Marie's family when her father was still alive. When he says договор есть договор, he's referring to the loan agreement that he wants them to honor no matter the circumstances. So it's a pretty neutral phrase, but in this context, it comes off a bit harsh because he's not considering their situation at all. If someone is asking for some flexibility or understanding, договор есть договор can definitely sound cold and even a bit condescending. Next, Marie walks in and Gospodirator starts explaining her father's debt and the consequences if it's not repaid. Then he proposes his solution.
Впрочем, все можно поправить, если только вы согласитесь стать моей женой.
Что?
Language-wise, the sentence is pretty straightforward except for the word впрочем. Dictionaries might define it as but or however, and that's not entirely wrong, but впрочем doesn't quite work in the same way. Words like but or however are used to contrast two ideas. Впрочем doesn't do that. It's more about shifting the conversation. To understand this better, think about what Gospodirator says right before впрочем. He spends a lot of time talking about all the awful things that will happen if they don't pay. Then when he says впрочем, it's like he suddenly stops all the negative talk and redirects the conversation, offering a solution that completely changes the tone. So впрочем is more about changing the subject than contrasting. This is where it gets super uncomfortable because what's supposed to be a solution is actually manipulation. So Marie's mom responds with
Пойдите вон, ничтожество!
ничтожество, which translates to a worthless person. This is no casual insult. Ничтожество comes from ничто, meaning nothing. So calling someone ничтожество means their character is so bad, they're basically nothing. It's a strong word. While not technically a swear word, it's definitely not something you say unless someone is truly despicable. You want to use it carefully. It's usually reserved for someone whose actions are so bad you can't even call them a person anymore. There is also the adjective ничтожный, which means something insignificant or small. It's less intense and can be used to describe things other than people. But when Marie's mom calls Gospodirator ничтожество, she's judging his character, and in this case, it's much stronger. After his creepy proposal, Gospodirator hands Marie a doll. Then he leaves, telling her he'll be back tomorrow to hear if she agrees. Clearly, this is a depressing situation. Though we know things will turn out okay in the end, but I wanted to end on a bit of a lighter note, so let's skip to the scene later in the show where the doll comes to life and Marie goes to the underworld, meets the mice and their queen. Much more exciting.
Почему мы остановились, мама?
Я чувствую запах этих несносных, отвратительных созданий. Людей.
Чувствовать запах means to feel the smell, which is how we express smelling something in Russian. Создание means creature. And the combination of несносный и отвратительный is a great way to express disgust. Несносный means something annoying or unbearable, while отвратительный means disgusting. Interestingly, when she said that line, my mind instantly went to крыс, and I almost said it out loud, but she actually says людей. It's a good reminder that in any language, there are expressions that make you think of one thing, in our case, отвратительный, made me think of rats, but the actual words might be referring to something else. Humans. The idea of disgust for humans is flipped here. The creatures, in this case rats, seem to feel the same way about us as we do about them. It's a great vocabulary, by the way. Несносный, отвратительный can be used for anything you find repulsive or disgusting.
Люди? Вы не ошиблись, мама? По-моему, пахнет птицей.
This is similar to asking, "Are you sure?" in English, and пахнет means it smells. Пахнет птицей. And that's a wrap for today's lesson. If you've made it this far, thank you for sticking with me and giving my work your attention. I really hope you enjoyed this little postcard I created just for you, and I also hope you enjoyed the holidays 2 months ago. It's already February and I'm uploading tomorrow. Took me a bit longer to finish editing than expected. I'm a law student, so you can imagine the workload, but no excuses. I made a New Year's resolution to take content creation more seriously and to stay consistent. I'm really passionate about sharing what I know, and I feel like I have something to offer. When I was learning new languages, and I'm still learning, I found other creators on YouTube really helpful. So this is my way of giving back and trying to help in my own way. And a big thank you to each of you for your support. There are almost 900 of us, which is honestly a pretty big deal. So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.